This is episode 26 called the Avant-Garde with Cora Kozaris. What's up, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Unplugged podcast presented by the Dance Plug Toronto. My name is Roy Bonozo, and today we've got a very special guest on the podcast. Before we jump right into it, we've got some news and updates that we would like to share. As of January 1st, 2020, the Dance Plug Toronto will be charging to advertise on the platform. Over the past year, we provided free advertising to many local events, companies, and organizations. With the exponential growth of our platform on both social media and the podcast, we feel that the amount of time and effort that went into building this platform should start to generate revenue if companies and organizations are looking to expand their reach into the dance community. Also in the new year, we will be highlighting and recognizing dance artists, both locally and abroad, for their outstanding work and involvement in dance. More on this in a future episode. Want to advertise on the podcast? Reach thousands of dancers with your event, product, or service. Email us at thedanceplugto@gmail.com for more information. This week, we sat down with the lovely Cora Kozaris. Cora was born with a passion for movement and an innate desire to create. Her unrestrictive style coupled with her sensitive qualities are what make her choreography breathtakingly memorable. Her work has appeared on several television networks, and she also has an extensive amount of commercial industry experience under her belt. She is most proud of her full-length show sequel entitled Carne, which debuted in the fall of 2016 and 2017. In addition to her industry work, Cora is deeply passionate about teaching and mentoring youth. She prides herself in creating a safe space for her students to thrive and ultimately flourish into artists that they were meant to become. She continues to share her artistic perspective as a freelance choreographer and a masterclass teacher across Canada. In her episode, we talk about her dance style and how she prefers not to label it to any specific genre, class etiquette, and her creative process when it comes to producing full-length shows. I got teary-eyed recording this interview with Cora because it was filled with just so much emotion. We hope you enjoyed listening to this one, so here's the Avant-Garde with Cora Kozaris. On this fine evening in downtown Toronto, I am joined by the lovely Cora Kozaris.
Wow, he does his research.
How you doing, Cora?
I'm great, Roy. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I think this is awesome. And thank you to everyone who wrote in, who took the time to write in. That's amazing.
Now, I start every interview with the same question that every guest gets. So where does your journey in dance begin?
So my journey in dance begins in childhood. I was born in Toronto, Ontario. My dad was a musician, so naturally I feel like at a young age I was exposed to a ton of different music genres and live instruments, and I guess my mom would say little Cora was always dancing around the house.
Nice.
Very free-spiritedly, of course. When I turned 7, my parents got divorced. I moved to a different city. My mom put me in dance as sort of a bribe, I guess, to bring some light into the situation and to help me adjust to a new place, get me to know some people. And I still remember that first day at dance. Like, I absolutely fell in love. We got to put on these butterfly wings and just be terrible. But seriously, it felt like an escape from reality. And even to this day, dance is still that for me, an escape from reality. So my studio was always my favorite place to be.
Very nice.
Thanks.
Now, you mentioned your parents earlier, but are there any other individuals that maybe played a key role in your development as a dancer growing up?
Oh, yes. Yes, of course. 3 very important individuals come to mind, and I'll do it in sort of a timeline for when they affected my life. So in my early teens, my high school dance teacher, her name was Tabitha DeBrun. She was an incredible mentor of mine. She was just so in tune. She knew exactly what I needed to thrive. And she was always giving me tasks that really challenged my creativity. And she gave me responsibilities for me to be held accountable for my actions and leadership roles that pulled me out of my comfort zone and into the spotlight. And she just, most importantly, she really looked out for my well-being. Like, honestly, she was the sole reason I even showed up to school and attended any of my other classes. Like, at the time, I wasn't in love with academia the way I am now. So she gave me responsibilities that really forced me in the building. And I didn't realize that until, I got older, and I'm like, oh, you're sneaky, brilliant woman. Yeah, but I'm so grateful for her. She's amazing. So next, in my late teen years, graduating years, an amazing choreographer and human came into my life named Tiffany McLaughlin. And at that time, I was really starting to, like, my mind was kind of running wild. And I had all these ambitions of who I wanted to be, like how I wanted to dance, what I wanted to do with my life in dance. And when I met her, it was like the flesh, the living proof, like she was the epitome of everything I wanted to become. She was so cool, so inspiring. And she had this motivating essence to her that made you want to work your ass off. And I just felt so connected with her and her work, and we totally clicked. And to this day, whenever I see her, I'm so overwhelmed with emotions. Whenever I see her, I just cry because of the impact. I want to cry right now just talking about her, but because the impact she had on my life. And even to this day, I still use her as a reference point for how I teach. It's like, what would Tiff do? Like, I should make a bracelet. What would Tiff do?
WWTD.
Oh my God, that'd be amazing. Yeah, absolutely. And third, who I met most recently is another incredible human choreographer dancer, and his name is Jaron Reese. He's from Portland, Oregon, now living in LA. And this one I get so emotional about as well. I was in LA last year training for several months. Specifically, I went there to train in his class and a few others because I've been following his work for a while. And since day one, I've never felt so bonded with somebody's work. I've never actually experienced that sensation before in my life. To be completely in your own skin in someone else's creation. Like, it's, I don't think I have words for it. Like, I would pack for his class and be like, bye-bye, going to church, or bye-bye, going to therapy. Like, I can't explain the impact he had on my life. And I did meet him when I was at a low point in my life. And truly, like, through his trust and encouragement, he brought me back. He really brought me back just by being him, just by being him. And yeah, from day one, he noticed me and we just clicked. And I can honestly say through his work, I began to feel comfortable in my own skin again. And now I'm honored to say I'm the first international member of his company, Canvas Dance Ensemble.
Nice.
Yeah. It was wild. It is wild. It feels like a dream, but yeah. Yeah.
Now, this particular segment of the podcast, we obviously, I guess, have contemporary teachers, but you don't want to classify yourself as a contemporary artist per se.
Yeah.
So how would you identify your style?
Good question. Because I do get this question a lot, actually. And without putting a genre label on it, I would just say edgy, raw, avant-garde, a hybrid of styles.
Avant-garde.
And yeah, a hybrid of styles inspired by human emotion.
Very nice.
Like, it just really varies from week to week depending on what I'm choreographing or teaching. Yeah, and I just don't like to put a genre label on it because I don't only stay in that world. I don't only stay in that contemporary realm.
Speaking of teaching, why do you teach?
Ooh, so many reasons. So many reasons. I love teaching because I enjoy motivating people. I enjoy being in a sweaty, determined environment. I think when you have a room full of people working their asses off, like, there's a vibration in the room. Like, I feel high.
Yeah, and fogging up the mirrors while you're at it.
Hey. So many things to make everyone seen and heard, because that's something that I didn't necessarily experience growing up. And so the people that have influenced me the most, the people that I talked about earlier, most importantly, I just felt seen and heard, you know, and understood. So I want to be able to do that for others. Ultimately just to connect with people through dance. And I always say movement has always been my first language. And I think it's the clearest form of communicating with somebody's spirit. Like teaching really pushes me to learn more. So I have more to share. So it pushes me to be better. Yeah.
Are you someone who's very contagious around energy?
I would say so.
Yeah.
I would say so. I do feel like I pick up a lot of energy. And something that I had to work on is not letting other people's energy affect my day. If it maybe wasn't necessarily the best energy. If it's great energy, like the more the merrier, you know, open heart, accepting all. But yeah, it's funny you should ask that because I do feel kind of like a sponge at times.
Nice.
Yeah.
Now, one thing I've noticed, especially when you do teach, is that you're one of the very few teachers that never wanted to get their class filmed. And even if you did get it filmed, it would just never be posted anywhere.
Right. I'm like, get out, get out. I know. Sorry about that.
Why?
Valid question. So at that time when I think you would have witnessed this was like a couple years ago, we were working together. So at that time I had a contemporary slot from 9:30 to 11 p.m. So people are coming into this class as the last task of the day. And maybe they had a great day, maybe they had a shit day. Either way, they had a full day. And to me, that's like, who knows what kind of emotional weight one might be carrying at that time. So my class identity at that time was focused on expression and using dance as a transformative tool to heal. Don't get me wrong. We're going to learn some choreography and train our faces off, but I wanted people to do something really real with it, something really unfiltered. And I felt like it was a really safe space. That being said, it was a really messy space and like in the best way, messy in the best way. And I just felt like with a camera in the room, people wouldn't feel comfortable to surrender to that philosophy. I do view teaching as a selfless act. So it was important to me to respect what people wanted and what people cherish more about that space. So I just kept it as a constant. And if I was filming, it was just for me to look back and reflect. Like I don't hate filming classes. I don't hate filming classes at all. I just hated how invasive and disruptive it was becoming in the space because I felt that space was very delicate. But I'm getting better at sharing my processes now. It's easier for me now to block out the camera than it was back then. I'd actually love to share my processes a little bit more now that we're talking about it, but not in an environment that was so tender.
Or tense.
Yeah. Tender and tense. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Thank you. Yeah.
Are there any things that you would like to see change, specifically in the drop-in community, for it to elevate to the next level?
A few things come to mind that are kind of disconnected, so it might sound like a little bit of a jump. Firstly, I would like to see dancers class outside of their primary genre and comfort zone a little bit more. I think we're losing a lot of versatility, and I think we're losing a lot of curiosity. And I think the only way to do that is to really change our perspective on what class taking is. For me, like class is a process, not a product. And I understand wanting to master one style, but do it intelligently. Like there are so many classes that will emphasize areas that you need to work on. Take your weaknesses, find a class that focuses on that, and just train. Just train. Like if you have trouble with footwork, go take a house class. If you need more body control, go take a ballet class. Like you need different sources to truly develop your artistry and to mature your artistry. And like I guarantee you, if you're going to the right classes by a reputable teacher or choreographer, the lessons that you're learning are going to be universal to your dancing and to your life. And I think everyone's movement is craving it. If you're interested in something, go try it. Enjoy it. You know, I think there's also something super special about walking into a room as an amateur again. I think that's something very important that we all need to experience now and then.
Yeah.
You know, I had a similar experience. And this is why I'm preaching this and why I think it's so beneficial, because I went through this. Last year, last year I started taking house pretty regularly when I was in LA. There was one artist that inspired me to start taking house, and his name's Ray Bassa.
Oh, he's great.
Oh, he's absolutely incredible. And initially I started taking it for research purposes, and I was like, I need to work on my footwork. I stay so stationary when I move, when I create. I need to work on my footwork. And when I started going there consistently, I got so much more out of what I initially went there for. You know, I found freedom. I found freedom in movement. I found freedom in dance. The feeling of freedom, right? Which I apply that lightheartedness to my everyday life now. Like, it really did change my life for the better, and I wasn't expecting that. Right? And now I'm addicted to it. Like, whenever I'm in LA, I'm like, I have to get in his class. I have to get there. And it's so much more than just the movement. So you never know what you're going to find, but you have to put yourself out there. You have to take risks. You have to be okay with being an amateur. And I think it's so cool to walk into a space that's really outside your realm and see people, see artists who have been mastering that style for years and years and years. It's so inspiring. It's so inspiring. So just that, I think I really, really learned or tried to master the art of observing. Because there was just so much inspiration around me. Like, I could just go to a class and just sit and watch. Of course, I want to move. I didn't do that, but I would be happy doing that, right? There's just so much juiciness. I always use this word, like juiciness, just full, you know, happening around me. So yeah, step outside your style, try something new. It's only going to enhance what you already have. You literally cannot lose. So I would love to see that a little bit more. On another note, class etiquette. Oh my.
Oh, that I think that's a whole other topic, but
I think that's a whole new podcast, right? From teaching and from taking classes, I'm sorry to say I'm astounded by the lack of proper etiquette that I'm seeing in these drop-in classes. People on their phones, people talking while the teacher's talking, people strolling in late. It's just becoming so relaxed. It's disrespectful for the teacher, to yourself, and to our craft. You know? Like, to the art of dance. I want to see people put their phones away, arrive to class on time. The teacher should be the last person to walk in the room. When you arrive, be quiet, be receptive, be ready to learn. You're affecting everyone around you, including the teacher. It's not good. And I call it out. I call it out when I teach, and I call it out when I take. I can't help it. I can't help it. But it's all out of love. Yeah, and for the love of dance, I just think it deserves more respect.
Do you think it's mainly because of the shift of how the drop-in scene has transformed? And what I mean by that is the influx of more recreational type classes, like dancers who aren't necessarily aware of the etiquette per se, right? On that note, though, do you think it's the teacher's responsibility to inform students? And do you think there's a lack of education on that regard? Right? Because I understand, like, if you're coming from, let's say, like a competitive studio, those things are ingrained in you.
Absolutely.
Right? So that culture is already kind of set before you walk into the room, regardless of, you know, what space you're in. It could be a convention, it could be, you know, a drop-in studio. But for, let's say, the regular 9-to-5ers who are taking these drop-in classes, they're obviously not aware of the etiquette. Right. So do you think that could be the reason as to why there is this shift or a lack of etiquette?
So I can't really comment on the beginner level classes because I haven't spent a lot of time observing those or teaching in those atmospheres as of lately anyways. So yes, it should be reinforced by the teacher, but I mean, would you take your phone to a yoga class? Would you take your phone rock climbing? Like, to me, it just goes without saying. If you're going somewhere to learn, there is this mentality with some that I paid for the class, I can do what I want. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. You know, you're only taking away from your own experience. So there's that. And even if you didn't grow up, like you were saying, it's ingrained. If you're, taking class at a competitive studio, it's ingrained. I do agree with that. But I just think it goes without saying, if you take yourself seriously as an artist, then take yourself seriously and don't be distracted or be distracting when you walk into a room. It's a class. It's like school.
Okay, so we're going to backtrack just a bit. And earlier on in the conversation, we talked about how you were reluctant to, get your class filmed.
Right.
And even when it was filmed, it would never be posted, so people wouldn't be able to find it. Do you think it's possible in today's drop-in culture to still build a following of regular and consistent students without the use of social media?
I'm going to say yes. And I'm going to say yes because I feel like I did it. I feel like ultimately a good class is like a good book. It's all word of mouth. If someone has a really good experience, they're going to share it with their friends.
Yeah.
But I will say it's harder. And it's so important to have an online presence, especially in a big city where people are constantly flowing in and out to train. You need to be findable. And it's free advertising, it's free marketing. Use it.
Yeah.
Use it to your benefit, Yeah.
Now, you've been doing this for a while, I'd like to think.
Yeah. I take pride in that.
How have you been able to sustain a career in the arts?
Woo! Is this your question or someone write this in?
Someone else wrote this in.
Wow. What a great question. Let me think for a second, because there's definitely no one-size-fits-all way to answer this. Okay. So ultimately, I always knew I wanted to be a dancer and a choreographer, and I was really, really determined to prove to my family and to myself that I could make a living off being an artist. So when I graduated high school, I wasn't even living in the city at the time. So before I moved back, I went online and I started applying for as many jobs as I could, basically anything with dance in the job description.
Nice.
I was like, it's for me. So I just started applying away. And side note, I think that's extremely important. We all talk about having this side hustle. In addition to like building our craft, doing what we want to do, we always have our side hustles. I think it's really important to have a side hustle in your field, right? Because then at least you're gaining experience in the realm you want to end up working in, and you're honing in on your skills, right? So I think that's extremely important.
I'm just going to interrupt you there just a bit.
Yeah,
I think that's such a very important thing.
Yeah.
Having a side hustle in the realm that you want to be in.
Yes.
Right. I mean, especially me, because I surround myself with a lot of dancers who have part-time jobs outside of the realm. What's the difference? Right.
Right.
What are the benefits of having a side hustle that's in the realm that you want to be in?
In your field?
Yeah.
Well, you're gaining experience that you're going to add to your career. You're honing in on skills that you're going to add to your career. Not saying that having something out of the realm, like something very business related, won't help you. That will help you immensely. But especially when you're trying to build and you're trying to lay a foundation and you're trying to start a blueprint for your dance career to grow and thrive off of, I think it's important to plant the seeds there if you can, right?
Yeah.
Like all these jobs that I initially applied for, they weren't my dream jobs. It was really hard. I was teaching rec classes to little tiny kids at a dance studio, and I was like go-go dancing at one point. Believe it or not, I was dancing at a casino. I was dancing at weddings. I was teaching at after-school programs at Montessori schools. And all at the same time, right? Because all of those together somehow added up to full-time hours. So I needed to just fill up the schedule that way. And there's nothing wrong with these jobs. I commend anyone who has a full-time career in them, but it just didn't align with my soul and my mission and where I wanted to be. So although I at the very beginning of my career, I had these jobs that didn't necessarily stimulate me, I showed up every day, punctual, on time, prepared, and positive, and I just did a great job. And it's crazy because these jobs that ultimately I didn't want to end up in ended up being so beneficial to my career. They actually began to network me to individuals and other opportunities that were better suited to my talents and ambitions. Like one thing I would say is never think, oh, that job's not what I want to do. Oh, that job's not going to take me anywhere. Well, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. And if it's in your field, it will take you somewhere. It will, whether that's gaining experience on what to do, what not to do. And, there's nothing wrong with applying for entry-level positions either. It gives you a chance. It gives you a little bit of breathing room to be like, okay, I can get a little messy here. I can make some mistakes and still be okay. Like I can't imagine walking onto a huge production for the first time without any of this background experience. It would be so overwhelming.
Yeah.
Like everything will take you somewhere. So example, just there's not one of these jobs that I mentioned that didn't grow into something more suitable for me or something that I enjoyed more. And some of these seeds are still growing and still blossoming, like example. So these jobs I mentioned before, one of them, I was teaching rec at a dance studio, like a little summer camp, right? So there I met this other amazing artist and her sister was a singer. So what happened was we clicked. I started backup dancing for her sister. We clicked, hey, we love what you do. Can you start doing choreography for me? Then I start dancing and doing choreography for this amazing artist, which in turn turned into being referred to other artists and collaborating with them with choreography and movement direction. And the amazing thing about this is that I wouldn't have been able to do some of those jobs if I didn't have this like very basic teaching experience that I gained from this first job that one might have thought like, I don't want to do this, right?
Yeah.
So everything just completely went full circle. I mean, you'll be surprised by how often you get referred if you just show up and you do a good job, right? Like, long story short, plant seeds in your field. Apply for jobs, water those seeds with hard work, and watch them grow because they're really going to turn into something beautiful. And you build a safety net. Your safety net just keeps getting bigger and bigger. Yeah, like I'm not going to say it's easy. It's not easy. We're talking about this 10 years later now. And just a few years ago, I was actually able to start passing jobs up, passing on it, being like, that's not really for me. So it takes years to build, as any career does, right? As any career does. I'm also a workaholic. I love to work. So I didn't mind that. And yes, I'm also happy that I found such a strong passion for teaching because that has really kept me afloat when like commercial work wasn't falling into line. So I also think versatility is extremely, extremely important to sustain a career. The bigger your skill set is, the more hireable you are. Spend your time gaining experience and constantly making choices that add to the value of you as an artist. And that's what I was talking about earlier, is a side hustle. Is it adding to the value of you as an artist? Is there a better choice that could be made here?
Yeah.
In addition to all of that, hone in on your business skills. This is our career. It's like any other career. Make sure you have your resume done properly, up to date. You're representing yourself. Learn how to sell yourself. And people want to be confident with who they hire. They don't want to feel like they're taking a risk on you. And if you don't believe in yourself, why am I going to believe in you? So in closing, what do we say? We said, get a side hustle in your field. Hone in on your business skills. Do things that increase your value as an artist. Be versatile and package and sell yourself.
We're going to backtrack a few years ago. So in 2016 and 2017,
right,
you produced a full-length show called Carne.
I sure did.
The first question that I have to ask is what influenced you to, or what influenced your decision to start a show like that?
So, yeah, this takes a bit of a serious turn. I'm going to try and be as transparent. A couple months before the show, I lost the most important person to me in this entire world. And that really shook me from the inside out, and it really affected every part of my life. The death of this person forced me to find purpose in my own life. And I had to ask myself, like, if I died tomorrow, what will I regret not having done? And creating a show was the first thing on my list. And up until that point, I always had ambitions to put my own show together, but I guess the fear of failure was absolutely debilitating. And, oh man, I just think I gained an entire new perspective on life when I lost this person. I let go of all expectations of myself, and I stopped caring about any external judgment. And I don't think that was a conscious decision. I think I just became numb to everything. And I just did it. I told my story. And it was so strange because although I felt immense sadness, at the same time, I felt very illuminated to take control of my own life. It sounds so silly, but like the first time I did that show, like the show was the first of many decisions I made from that point out to be better, to fearlessly pursue my life and my dreams. And oh man. Like, that's the day I truly became an artist. Yeah.
I'm going to give you a minute.
That question rocked me the most because it sparks, like, everyday life. You know? It sparks everyday life. Yeah. I'm good.
You want to talk about the story?
Oh, sure. So the show content, while being very vague, because there is an element to the show. Like, after I got the feedback for the show.
I'm talking about the first one.
First or second.
Okay.
First or second. Mm-hmm. There were so many different beautiful interpretations depending on what people were going through in their lives. Mm-hmm. And I almost felt like I didn't want to fully disclose, you know, what my direct story was, because it was just so beautiful what people felt from it. And on, you know, different ends of the spectrum. So for a long time, I didn't want to talk about the work. I was like, just let the work speak to you how it speaks to you. But from me, so my show was about the deterioration of one's body and mind, like to the point of death, and a hell of a lot in between, of course. But then what comes after death? Are our souls finally free, or are we just gone? And this is a question that I ask myself so much. When that loss occurred, it changed my whole perspective on death, and life after death. And I choose to believe your relationship with that person doesn't have to end. And I choose that every single day.
Nice. Now, I had the privilege of producing and mixing for Carne 2.
You sure did. You're amazing. Thank you for everything.
Oh, anytime.
I think Roy is the most supportive. person I've ever met in my life of everybody's artistic endeavors. So shout out to you, Roy, for just being amazing.
No, that means a lot. Thank you.
Yeah.
Man, I just lost my train of thought just there. So I was producing, or I had the privilege of producing and mixing for Carne 2. And one thing I was completely surprised about was your music selection. So, just to give everyone a bit of backstory, when Cora had asked me to mix the music for her, I didn't want to see the show at all until, I guess.
Like, you don't want to see rehearsals, you're saying?
Yeah. Like, there would be times where, I'd be at the studio and she'd be rehearsing next door, and, as tempting as it was to go peek, I couldn't do it. So, as I was, mixing the music for the show, I had obviously a lot of questions. And the one thing was, why would you put this song here? This makes no sense, right? But one thing I do want to ask you is, can you describe your creative process when it comes to producing content for a show like Carne?
Yeah, for sure. And I'll comment a little on the music choices too.
Cool.
Because I think that's such a big part of my work is, I love kind of throwing people for a loop with the music choices. I love making people hear songs maybe they've heard 100 times before and have them digest it in a completely different way.
Yeah.
I love messing with that. Sorry. Okay, creative process, right? So because the show was self-funded, everything was super time sensitive. I had to choose music that I immediately found a connection with regardless of the genre. And then, so the way I choreograph is I form the movement to the music. And then my segue for the storyline was the interludes. So the interludes kind of glued everything, bonded everything together. Like, I can understand how it'd be super jarring to listen to the soundtrack. It was definitely a mixed bag. But I do feel that the visuals and the storyline mended any of that turbulence, or so I hoped, or so I think. What did you think when you heard the soundtrack? Like, you were saying you were thrown off. Like,
yeah, well, I mean, the reason why I say that is because, as you know, like I do some DJing on the side.
Yes.
And DJs build like an ear. So the first, my first thought is,
this makes no sense.
How am I going to blend these two tracks completely together? I mean, you had, I don't even remember the order, but I do remember going to a very ambient track, let's say.
Yeah.
Into a, I don't even know, like a 50s slow jam or something, or a 50s waltz. I guess that's what I think that was the track.
Okay.
And in my head, I'm thinking, there's no way I'm going to be able to make this work without putting a gap of silence in between, which I ended up doing. But to see it all unfold on stage was magical. It was.
Oh, thank you. That really means a lot.
Yeah, it was spectacular. So I think just like being on the other end and even helping you with that creative process really like not only like opened my eye, but like it definitely gave me a different perspective on how people interpret music and put it in ways that works well.
Right.
When it's complemented with moves.
Right.
Right. And I think that's the beauty about this art we call dance. So. Yeah,
I agree. I completely agree. Although some of the songs sound like they're on completely different sides of the spectrum, like you said, like, 50s track to an ambient track to a jungle tribe. For me, there's something in there that can bond them. Like, if I'm in a certain mindset, I'm gravitating towards these songs for a reason. So for me, I'm like, there's something that they have in common. And as long as there is something in the lyrics or the production that I can pull from, like, as long as there's something in the lyrics and production that I can pull the same emotionality from, I think it can work in a weird way. Like, example, like that 50s track you were talking about, maybe the vocals give me a really eerie feeling. And I get that same eerie feeling from a bass line in a really current R&B track or something like that. The choreography is going to be based around, you know, in the 50s track, the vocals, and in the current R&B track, the bass line. So I'm emphasizing the things that I feel like blend really well or have something in common or have the same emotionality from them. So we're overlapping the vibes, but still letting the story continue and to take it to a different place. And I think what's so beautiful, like you said, as artists, we have the power to emphasize whatever we want in the music with movement. And to a certain degree, make people digest it the way we want.
Now, as you had mentioned earlier, you know, Carne was created around, what was it, pain and suffering? No.
Well, just in general, pain and trauma.
Pain and trauma.
I never felt that to be so real until this process. Hearing the feedback, hearing people's personal stories, and also the rehearsal process with my group of dancers, hearing their stories and the different channels they're going to take to connect to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, just so pain, trauma, loss, heartbreak. That's what the show is based around.
Do you think creating from pain is necessary or destructive?
For me, very, very necessary. In my opinion, my best work comes from the most painful experiences. I will say, though, I haven't been able to create something while I'm in real time going through it. There has to be some distance for me.
Gotcha.
There has to be some distance between the trauma and the creation. And I will flip to the other side and say, from experience, that's where it can get destructive, is if you're in a space where you're not ready to necessarily revisit that experience. I think it can kind of send you down a loophole. And for me, I get very clouded by emotions. So if I'm in the thick of it, I can't do everything else that's required to put a piece together. Can't remember what I did. I can't remember what order things came in. I get very judgmental of my own work. I pick it apart. I hate everything. So I think it can be both depending on how you use it. And I think it can be very therapeutic if you find what works for you.
That's great. Now I have to ask, or at least, well, there was someone who submitted this next question because they obviously didn't get a chance to watch Carne 1 or 2. Oh. But is there a Carne 3 coming, or is there a Carne 3 in the works?
No. I feel like I closed that chapter in my life of needing to create from that particular space. I mean, if you see a 3, please check on me. Please see if I'm okay.
Yeah.
I definitely I'm interested in producing another show at some point under the same branch. Maybe not. I have such a new, fresh perspective on life lately, and I don't know if that's something I want to open up and revisit. And I also think the more I live, the more that loss shows its lighter side to me and its beauty and its reason to be celebrated. And I think I exert that in my everyday life. And I don't think it's something that I would necessarily want to create about from that chapter. Yeah, if you see a 3, just hit me up. Just check on me. Make sure I'm doing okay. If you get an email from me at 4 a.m. asking you to mix music, make sure I'm good.
Noted.
Yeah.
Okay, we're in the home stretch. Let's talk briefly about the commercial industry. Now, as someone who has extensive commercial experience under their belt, what advice do you have for dancers who may want to work in this realm?
I always say this. I say this to myself. In addition to your talent, work on yourself as a person. It's very long days on set. What type of person would you want to spend a 16-hour day with? Be that person. Obviously, someone punctual, be reliable, show up with a positive attitude, Be intelligent and open to learning. Be communicative. Get back to people on time. No one wants to be waiting for you to confirm. Be a team player. You're never working alone. Be a team player. And I would say the most important advice that I got was know your role. Really know your role. If you're hired as a dancer, don't try to be the lighting director. Don't try and, work in wardrobe. Don't try and be the choreographer. Stick to your job and do an amazing one. That's where all your energy should be going. That's where all your effort should be going. Learn from the other departments, but stick to your role and do a great job. And yeah, just exercise those traits as often as you can, and exercise them as much as you're working on your talent and your movement. So important. What else? Something that really worked for me that I feel so blessed to have experienced was having a mentor. I feel like this was super, super beneficial for me. I was so blessed that I was introduced into the commercial world through a mentor of mine. Her name is Addie Chan. She taught me a lot of principles that I carry through every job that I do to this day. So I assisted her for a couple of years on a TV show. And every job that came after that, I felt so much more equipped, so much more prepared to do a better job. So if you can, find someone who has skills that you admire, like talk to them, ask them questions. Don't ask them for jobs. There's a difference. And make yourself available to them. Make sure you're researching their work, know who you're really talking to and what you're asking for. I think that is number one. Hit them up. Hey, I really admire XYZ about your work. If there are any opportunities that, arise in the future for me to be a fly on the wall or help out in any way, I would love to learn and I would love to be considered. Right? If they have a class, show up. Yeah. If they have any seminars, show up. Do what you have to do with your schedule. They want to make sure you're serious. If someone brings you on, ultimately it's their name, and if it's somebody you admire, chances are they take their name very seriously. So respect that, do the legwork, do the research, and it never hurts to reach out.
Let's talk about the future.
Yes.
Where would you like your career to be in the next 5 years?
Oh, okay. I would love to continue to share my passion and my artistic perspective. I would love to take it out of the city, out of the country. And I love Toronto. I might ultimately end up here. I might die here. I love the city. But at this point in my life, all work-related things aside, I want to travel. I want to see the world. So if I could combine the two, I think it would be such a really, really amazing and inspiring experience. And just to be able to research and gain knowledge from other cultures and other dance communities, I think ultimately that's the recipe to be a master of your own craft. I think you need to source outside of your hub, your comfort zone. So just all around, I would love to work globally. I would love to train globally. I would love to just travel and enjoy life and experience different cultures globally. Yeah, definitely teaching, definitely choreographing, artistic direction, movement direction. Yeah.
Nice.
Yes.
Now, if you could give your younger self any advice, what would it be?
Here we go. Just live in the moment with me, Roy.
Sorry.
If I could give my younger self any advice, what would it be?
Yeah.
I'm constantly giving my younger self advice. So my advice to myself 10 minutes ago is that I would have changed some of those answers. But I would say, to childhood Cora, I would say that hard work never goes unnoticed. And keep your spirits up and keep fighting.
That's awesome.
Thanks, Ray.
Now, to close off, are there any new and exciting news that you'd like to share? Like, what's in the immediate future for Miss Cora Kozaris?
The immediate future. Some film projects coming up.
Oh, wow.
I'm going to get back into my regular, drop-in pop-ups, a little bit of traveling, just pursuing.
Nice. Nice.
Roy, thank you so much for having me.
Oh, this is awesome, Cora. Tears and all.
It's been a blast. It's been a blast. Thank you so much, and thank you for everyone who's taking the time to listen to this. Really cool.
Now, as usual, everyone, thanks for listening, and let's continue that conversation. If you liked what you heard with what Cora said, shoot her a DM, maybe, send her a message. I know a few of you who have been listening have been great at, following up with some of the things that have been said on the pod before. So continue those conversations. If there was a specific part that you liked about the episode, be sure to share that. Make sure to tag us both. Wherever you're listening from, be sure to hit that subscribe button and leave a review. Mm-hmm. And this is Roy from the Unplugged Podcast, and we will see you guys next week.
Bye.